Alright, Philadelphia wrapped up rookie minicamp and we got all kinds of big takeaways. However, it's the new addition that Sean Mannion is making to the offense and practices that's getting completely overlooked. In this video, I'll go over what that is and share why I'm a huge fan of it. Plus, look into a couple Eagles in jeopardy of making the roster and discuss the potential of Makai in the offense. So let's talk about that and everything else from this past weekend around the birds. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? So the Eagles wrapped up their 2 days of minicamp, and I'm curious, what was the biggest takeaway for you from the last 2 days of what we learned? Honestly, I don't blame you if you say seeing the offensive weapons at work, or Uar Bernard's first couple practices, or getting to hear from the rookies about how they're fitting in. Although for me, having given it some time, I think the biggest takeaway was seeing and hearing at least a little bit about how Sean Mannion is implementing something brand new to Philly's offense and practices. Now, if you didn't pick up on this next bit, then you should be following Anthony DiBona, because the Ant-Man was the first one who pointed it out to me, but you'll notice from the picture here of the Eagles rookie minicamp that quarterback Payton was wearing a helmet camera. For the record, that's kind of a big deal because that's not anything that Philly's incorporated before, and I guess, yes, okay, there's some possibility that it was just for minicamp. However, with a new quarterbacks coach in Parks Frazier, along with Mannion trying to crash course this new offensive scheme for the offense, it makes a ton of sense that Jalen Hurts will be going through this new process too. By the way, if you're sitting there asking like, Josh, why the heck does this matter, or not sure how it necessarily can work or the benefits of it, don't worry, I did some research, I got you covered. So first off, former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel was one of the biggest advocates for the helmet cam back in 2023 for Tua Tagovailoa. And ironically, it was more due to the audio capabilities inside the huddle than what the quarterback was actually seeing during the play. Although there's still some benefits there, which I'll get into in a little bit. Anyway, McDaniel said that he and his staff believed Tua's desire to keep things private, or at least certain things private in the huddle, was outweighed by the value of information that the coaches could get from the audio. Plus, Tua even spoke to its effectiveness back then as well, admitting it's almost like you think of the integrity of the huddle. Because again, the coaches can hear everything you're saying, including if you decide to change things up or go off script. Now, maybe you think that's a little overkill, but at the very least, you can hear how Jalen calls the plays in the huddle, and in a new offense, that's a big deal. Seriously, we're talking about a brand new offense, so everything, including the basics, are gonna get scrutinized. Yet if that makes QB1 1% better, I'm all for it. Of course, from the visual side, the helmet cam will also let Mannion and Frazier record a point-of-view footage during practices and plays to help coach and evaluate Hurts. I mean, theoretically, it'll let the coaches see exactly what Jalen's looking at to then hopefully improve decision-making, progression reads, and pre-snap analysis. Plus, something I didn't even think of, but just learned about it from more research, is it allows coaches to save that film and then they can share it with other positional groups. So they can not only see what Jalen's seeing and maybe help from that side, but also listen to the audio, get more familiar with his cadence, the play calls. It helps all across the board. I'm sorry, even for the purists, those are advantages that you have to capitalize on with today's technology.
Yeah, I got to rethink this whole thing.
I will say this, it probably will be uncomfortable at first, but as we know with Jalen Hurts, he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. I'm just glad the Eagles aren't afraid to try something new. Heck, I brought up Jaden Daniels' virtual reality training mechanism a couple years ago for what the commies were doing, so it's time Philly gets with the times. FYI, for anyone who's unclear, but Daniels' VR headset essentially allows him to get thousands of extra virtual reps throughout the season against all kinds of coverages, ultimately speeding up his processing and help him to diagnose coverages quicker. Who doesn't want that? That's an obvious win-win. Now sure, the helmet cam is not the exact same thing, but it's another tool to ensure Hurts is as prepared as he can possibly get. As I said, it may be uncomfortable, but eventually it'll become second nature, which is pretty much how Makai feels already, with the Eagles' first-round pick saying he's been loving the city of Philadelphia since the moment he arrived. Hitting up the Sixers game with Deontae Smith, getting to learn more of the offense, and seeing exactly how Sean Mannion plans to use him. Yet as hype as that is, Smitty telling everyone that he's going to make himself available for whenever and whatever the rookie needs this year takes the cake.
Super humble guy, super chill, super calm, kind of my type of vibe. So I feel like me and him clicked on those things. So, but, when we step on the field, he already know he got that dog mentality. So I feel like me and him are going to click well, definitely.
I'm convinced Lemon is going to have a big year this year, a very big year. And judging by the comments, it feels like the vast majority of you are in agreement with me. But I guess my question is, what would you classify or term as a big year for Lemon? After all, Deontae Smith had 916 yards his rookie season when Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor were the number 2 and number 3 receivers. Or think back to Deshaun Jackson whenever he went off in his rookie season, and he had guys like Hank Baskett and Kevin Curtis. Now sure, Jordan Matthews' rookie year had Jeremy Maclin, but it still wasn't near the collection that Makai Lemon will have. Like, I think Lemon's going to do really well, but if we're talking about with this offense, personally, I feel like, 600 yards, 700 yards, that feels like a pretty big year. Come on, we're talking about other weapons outside of Devontae Smith like Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, and Eli Stowers. Don't get me wrong though, the Eagles have their new go-to in their own 619. Look, everyone already knows 1 + 6 = 7. Yet after the 21-year-old was granted the number 9, it seems almost like destiny given the new era of Philly's passing attack in Sean Mannion's system. And again, Dallas were the ones to make it happen.
Hello. Howie. Hey, this is Steven. How you doing, man? Our 7th next year? We're good. No, we don't want to. We're already giving up picks for this year. We're out of them. We're out of picks. But anyway, we for sure do it for the 2 4s.
You good?
I'll throw you a next year's 7.
Okay, we got a deal.
We got a deal.
Politics and football make strange bedfellows. The Eagles and Cowboys made a trade.
Probably 3 spots. He picked up 2 4.
This is Tess.
Yes, this is Stephen Jones. We're trading this pick to Philadelphia.
Okay.
We're trading pick 20 for their pick 23. And we get their 114 and 137 in the 4th.
Okay.
And
One
we
second.
give back our
Oh.
7th next year.
7th next year. Okay.
It is.
With the 17th pick,
Yeah.
56
Come on, man.
Hey, why Philly calling?
Oh, Philly just traded for you.
Hello?
This is Philly. They just traded for you.
This is Howie Roseman. I'm the GM of the Eagles. How you doing? We just traded up. We're picking you. You're an Eagle. Congrats, brother. Let's do it.
Let's get to work, man.
Congratulations.
Unfortunately, as I've talked about, probably too much at this point, that means A.J. Brown is going to get traded. However, A.J. was at his football camp over the weekend in Allentown and even had his son start some Eagles chants at the camp, followed by the man himself sharing an I love you message with fans in attendance.
Listen, I want to say thank y'all for bringing your kids. I had an amazing time. It was fun. We played hard. We competed. And I love you all. I don't care what you hear out there. I love you all. You understand? It's love. All right, we're going to bring Eagles on 3. 1, 2, 3.
You know, I agree with some of those people on social media that say that it feels like we've reached kind of a mutual agreement, right? Or at least like a mutual beneficial arrangement almost. Like it feels like both sides, the Eagles and AJ, are at the point of like, this thing's going to happen, but there's not really ill will towards either side. And I honestly, personally wish AJ the best wherever he ends up. Although there are some out there who took AJ's message as a sign of hope that he's somehow going to run it back in Philly.
Let me tell you something, my friend. Hope is a dangerous thing. Hope can drive a man insane.
Sorry, if you think AJ is still going to be here, then we'll have to agree to disagree. Heck, Devontae Smith was asked about AJ at his softball game and stuck to the same line of, I got a job to do, so I plan to go out there and do that, but didn't answer anything else at all about AJ. Now, like I brought up earlier, Smitty's going to be a terrific role model for Lemon. Of course, on the topic of Lemon, congrats to Blake Beatty for winning the Makai Lemon jersey giveaway with the praying for Dak comment.
Who brought this guy along?
I don't know what's more weird, the fact that Blake is hanging out on an Eagles channel or that he commented to try and win a Makai Lemon jersey. Although, Blake, I'm a man of my word, and I will hook you up with a lemon. I just hope this is you seeing the wayward path you've been on and are ready to come into the light.
The preacher said all my sins is washed away.
You know, either way, I don't feel right giving a jersey away to a Cowboys fan. No offense, Blake, or maybe some offense, I don't know. But we're going to do this thing again because I can't just end it with Blake getting the jersey. So, tell you what. drop a like because every 1,000 likes on this video will equal one Makai Lemon jersey that I'll give away. So, for example, 5,000 likes equals 5 Makai Lemon jerseys that I will give away to someone in the comment section. So make sure to like, leave a comment. Or tell you what, if you want an Eli Stowers jersey or really any rookie jersey, we can do that too. Honestly, I might lean more towards that direction the more that I hear from Stowers, but before I get to that, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Bear Mattress. After all, they're one of the longest sponsors of the channel, and I've had my Bear Mattress for over 2 years now. Of course, there's a good bit of change over that time, yet the one thing that's remained consistent is my sleep's never been better with Bear's premium fiberglass-free mattress customized to the way I sleep. However, don't just take my word for it, because Bear ran a survey on over 300 of their recent customers where 82% saw an improvement in their sleep quality on their new Bear mattress. And right now, they're running a special that's a higher discount than what's being offered on site. Just go to bearmattress.com/Philly special to take advantage. I'm telling you, the Bear Elite is the best mattress for everyone, no matter what kind of sleeper you are. Heck, just take a look at my sleep numbers since after making the switch, and that tells you all you need to know. Go ahead, give it a try and place the order, and then Bear will ship the mattress directly to your front door just like they did for us, where we were able to easily unroll and set up our new one. Also, all of Bear's mattresses are GreenGuard Gold certified, Certi Pure US certified, and EcoFlex fiberglass free. And the best part about all this is that Bear delivers your mattress right to your front door with free shipping in the US. I'm a broken record. I understand if you're anxious, if you're skeptical, saying, oh man, but I need to try the mattress. In person, I felt the exact same way, but Bear offers a 120-night sleep trial to make sure you love it. They also have a limited lifetime warranty, and they even offer financing options and flexible payment plans. I'm telling you, you cannot beat the quality, and I love my Bear mattress, and I know you would too. So if you're looking to upgrade your sleep, then head to bearmattress.com/Philly special and use code Philly special to get 40% off your Bear mattress. As always, after you check out, if you'll mention the Philly Special Show in your post-purchase survey, that would really support the channel.
Tell us about the man who Eli Stowers is.
Truly, he has no loose ends. He is a very, very tight-knit group of friends. He's very close to his family. His faith is very real to him. He's got a very quiet life, and he's all ball at the same time, too. So there's really no loose ends with him. That's the beautiful thing about bringing a guy in like Eli. And when I got to Vanderbilt, they're like, hey, we got this kid that's a tight end, right? And Jordan, when you get here, you're going to be very impressive. And I'd watched him the year before make a bunch of clutch catches for us. In the bowl game, in the Alabama game. So I loved him already. But, dude, I wasn't ready for what I was going to witness when I got there. He's a freak athlete. So we knew he was going to jump what he did at the Combine. We knew what his brow was going to be, his vert was going to be. He plays with a very calm poise, too. So it's he doesn't have to play running at 4.5 all the time. He can play at a nice pace and still be extremely productive. So then we're he's probably going to run 4.5, and I don't think anybody's going to be ready for that. He might run 4.4. Then he runs low 4.5. So, the kid is just a great athlete, very intelligent, but more than anything about him as a person, he has no distractions. And I think that's extremely important for a young man coming into Philadelphia and looking to be successful.
Look, I'll admit, every year we get hyped about the new picks coming in. And this year might be even more amplified with takes like ESPN saying Philadelphia made 2 of the best 27 picks in the 2026 NFL Draft. Yet at the same time, I think most of us understand this, at least relatively speaking, that we don't ever truly know about the picks. However, the fun part is just getting to see them progress and start to visualize how they might be able to fit into the current makeup of the team. So with that being said, and after the weekend of rookie minicamp, I had Eagles writer Anthony DiBona hop on to share what his biggest takeaways were. Those being kind of takeaways.
Yeah, so Michael Jordan stuck out as the biggest one, like you mentioned, not the one that played for the Bulls back in the day, but this Michael Jordan stuck around the NFL for quite a while as a guard, bounced around the league. Most notably, and this is why I made the connection a couple weeks ago, was that he was a starting guard for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Josh Grizzard leading their offense last year, right? So the fact that he was there and now available, and the depth along the interior of the offensive line for the Eagles isn't necessarily the best. There's not a ton of experience there, right? You got Drew Kendall, now Micah Morris, and some other younger players. Not an ideal situation to go into, right? I know we gave Brett Toth a lot of stuff on this podcast or this show, and now he's gone, right? But it was a notable loss. But I feel like because he was able to play center and guard, he can kind of fill in either role. And obviously Matt Pryor was another guy that they lost. But now you bring in Michael Jordan, who I would be surprised if they didn't sign him, right? Because the fact that they brought him in to this rookie minicamp means that they wanted to get a closer look. I mean, they brought in John Ross a couple years ago, and that didn't necessarily pan out, but he showed some that he could still play a little bit, right? But Michael Jordan was a starter for most of the season last year in Tampa Bay, and so I think he can give the Eagles some depth on at guard, given what the situation there. But also they brought in 2 running backs, right? And if you look at their current roster right now, they only have 4 running backs with adding Damian Pierce into the mix this offseason. But they brought in Elijah Mitchell and Khalil Herbert, who are 2 28-year-old running backs that showed a lot of promise early in their careers, early in their rookie contracts, but since then have kind of bounced around a little bit. So the Eagles are kind of kicking the tires on them. And given their lack of like depth and competition at the position, because you're not necessarily going to want Saquon Barkley getting a ton of reps in training camp or preseason games, and probably even Tank Bigsby, right? Because he's going to play, I believe, a bigger role than he did last season. So you want to have some depth and some players that could take some reps there. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them sign one of those running backs either.
We hope and pray that Tank Bigsby has a bigger role, because it wasn't a big one. But when he was out there, he was very effective. But we'll see. Sean Mannion being in charge of the offense. Surely we get some, just a little bit better. And it's great that he has NFL experience as well. And I'm curious because we got to see him out there. That was, for a lot of people, understandably, kind of myself included, but certainly a lot of people go, oh, that's the biggest takeaway, just to see Sean Mannion out there in the midnight green, bald, for people that have not seen that for quite some time. Some people say, Anthony DiBona and Sean Mannion have never been in the same room before, but that, neither that nor here nor there. Seeing Sean Mannion out there, on a serious note, experience-wise, he's played in the NFL, been around for a long time, pretty decent advantage as far as, yes, he's got to learn play caller. He's not done that before, but just a decent advantage of having been there, especially in the quarterback room.
Yeah, and I feel like that was kind of the appeal when they first hired him, right? Was he didn't have a ton of coaching experience, and even as a player in the NFL, he was in the league for quite a while, but he only had 3 starts under his belt, right? But the fact that he worked under some of the most like prominent and well-known offensive minds in the NFL right now, you're talking about a Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell. There's been plenty of others that have gone on to become OCs and head coaches around the league that he had stops with throughout his career, right? He didn't put up a ton of stats throughout his career. Obviously, he was a career backup, right? But being in those rooms, being in those practices, being in those meetings, he's learned and kind of carry that all with him. It's not, you don't necessarily have to be a Hall of Fame NFL player to be a phenomenal coach in the NFL, right? There have been plenty of players and coaches that have either done well when they were terrible players, or they've done terrible as coaches when they were great players, right? So you can see both sides of it. But the fact that he has that experience, I think only helps him. And it goes to show when you see a guy like second-round pick Eli Stowers talk about Sean Mannion, where he said, and I quote, really smart mind, right? And then he went on to say that their offense is going to be powerful because of Sean Mannion. And it's interesting wording. I really appreciate how well-spoken Eli Stowers is for a rookie, but giving that praise to Sean Mannion after just a couple meetings with him, I think is really promising. And I'm really excited to see what he can do with the offense in Philadelphia. But one last kind of funny note was he was first spotted in the draft room, right, when a lot of those phone call videos came out, and there were plenty of fans that were like, I didn't know Sean Mannion was that big. I'm like, yeah, he's a 6'6", 230-pound quarterback when he was playing. He's probably put on a couple of pounds since then. So it is going to be funny to see him towering over some people on the sideline or in the box, wherever he is for the Eagles.
A few extra cheesesteaks, I mean, he's still getting in some work, but he can let himself go a little bit. It is, though, and to see him out there on the field working with the fundamentals, like going through some of the stuff, even with Cole Payton in rookie minicamp. I mentioned it in a previous video, but I was like, I may be reading too much into it. I may be making it a bigger deal than it is. But just to see the offensive coordinator and know that he's been there, done that, and as far as the fundamentals being that quarterback on the field, I just can't help but get a little bit extra hype for it, because there's just something there, which is also how I felt after finally, I'm going to out myself here, after finally understanding your 619 reference. It went completely over my head. I know people are going to be like, Josh, Howard, I'm sorry. I didn't grow up watching wrestling. I didn't totally understand it all. I knew it had something to do with wrestling because of how people were reacting to it. Personally, didn't catch it until you shared. And it's pretty cool if you think about it, as far as Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Makai Lemon, quite a big connection there. But I feel like caught up to speed. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so firstly, I'm going to admit that I'm not the biggest wrestling fan at all. But shout out to my brother John, who's the biggest wrestling fan that I know. And all throughout my childhood growing up, he was always watching wrestling. He had the figures playing on the living room floor, playing with the figures. He's kept it to this day. Still keeps up with wrestling and all the indie companies and all this stuff. I can't really keep up with it. I choose to keep up with the Eagles football and things like that. But the reference immediately stuck in my mind once I saw Makai Lemon choose number 9, right? Because I know people always think of like nicknames and things like that, but I like the idea of this kind of new like moving forward with the offense, like the vision of the offense, and we're all about like attacking the middle of the field. That's kind of been the topic of conversation this offseason. Bringing in a Sean Mannion, hopefully that means they're going to target the middle of the field more. Rey Mysterio's finishing move, 619. He puts the other wrestler in between the ropes, swings in the middle of the ropes, and lands a pretty powerful kick to take them out, right? So I kind of put 2 and 2 together with the 619, with the jersey numbers of the 3 players, with that move, and it kind of went a little bit crazy on Twitter. People seem to appreciate the reference for all those wrestling fans out there. But once again, I'm not the biggest wrestling fan. I actually make fun of it quite a bit, but I did appreciate the reference, and I'm glad that others did as well.
Well, kudos to you, sir. You deserve all the hype that it was getting out there. But speaking of, again, on a football serious note, hype for Makai Lemon. It's just glimpses from minicamp, but based on what you saw there, more thoughts. I know we talked about it as soon as he was initially drafted, but seeing him in an Eagles uniform, wearing number 9, running some routes. I know they're not in pads and everything else, but just initial takeaways there. Pretty promising.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because you see like some clips. I mean, they're like 5-6 second clips, but the way people tweet him out and they're like going viral because like, wow, he's just moving different, right? Which is fair to understand, like, especially when you see him next to some of these other players that were participating in the rookie minicamp, right? It's just like he's moving at a different speed with his shiftiness, and he's not a guy that's going to run a 4.3. But the thing that made him so good at USC is just his footwork and the way he's able to get in and out of his breaks, right? What you see, there was that clip of him doing the box drill or whatever you want to call it, where he just hits the 4 cones and then cuts back in for the catch. And he was just moving, like the speed that his feet were moving and the angle. There was another viral tweet that was there because like his shin angle, how low his shin was to the floor with his ankle flexion. Like people were going crazy about that. So it's a little bit maybe over the top at this point in the offseason, but we're grasping at every little thing that we can. And I appreciate Eagles fans for how crazy they can be.
Well, you know, like you said, what else do we have to talk about? And I know people are like, yeah, we don't know how this guy's going to turn out. It's totally fair. But as you said, give us some grace here because it's literally May and we're trying to just grasp at anything of, oh, look, there's a little bit of a clip, you know, because we don't get too much. And again, you know, one was open to the practice, one was closed. It's the same way for training camp. Very few are open. If you want, as far as a public atmosphere, there's only one open practice. No, it's a long way from now, but it'll come very quickly. But as viral as Makai Lemon went, Uar Bernard continues to steal the show for being drafted, but then his first football practice ever, which I kind of had to remind myself again of. It's not just like, oh yeah, obviously it's everyone's first Eagles football practice. This is this dude's first football practice ever, first organized football practice with a team ever that he went through, and everybody, you know, certainly tuning in, but you kind of understand why.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, and it didn't really hit me until I saw Zach Berman's tweet of The Athletic, where that morning he's like, Uar Bernard's going to take the field for his first organized football practice. And I'm just thinking, like, there are kids all around the country that had their first football practice at 4 or 5 years old, right? He's 21, 22, whatever he is, and this is going to be his first practice, and it's in the NFL, right? It just goes to show how crazy his story is, and it's going to be so cool to follow his growth in Philadelphia. And there were some people that were like, oh, he's going to be a bust because there was one drill where he looked like a little slow, but this is literally the first time that he's going through these drills. It's like he did work leading up to the IPP combine and things like that, but it's not the same, right? A lot of this stuff is brand new to him, literally. Like he's not done this before. So he's going to take his lumps and bumps, but then there was another drill that he went through where it was like he does not look like a defensive tackle, the way that he's moving and bending the corner and getting to certain spots. So once he figures it out, it might take a year, it might take 3 years, but the Eagles are going to take their time. And Howie Roseman said it on the phone call before they even reached out to Bernard. He told the rest of the room, he said, we're going to embrace him. We're going to rally around him. So it seems like they're really like building a village around him to support him and really maximize Uar Bernard and whatever he can be in Philadelphia, just like they did with Jordan Mailata, right? Which is, they have that, luckily they have that experience of molding this kind of ball of clay and developing it into an all-pro in Jordan Mailata. Will Uar Bernard be that level of a player? I don't know, but it's going to be really fun to watch his journey with the Eagles.
And shout out to Chris Long of the Greenlight podcast, talking with Jonathan Grenard also, because that was exciting. You know, it was like, hey, what do you think about him? Chris Long, I think comparing Uar, basically saying he's a blank canvas, right? But like you can help, as you said, mold him, coach him, help him develop. At least he doesn't have bad habits. Like he doesn't have good habits either, but he doesn't have bad habits. So, you know, as far as a blank canvas, and Jonathan Grenard's like, you know, oh yeah, the first one we're going to teach him is the bull rush, which with his athleticism, it's just, it will take some time. Sure, he's not going to happen overnight, but as you said, the Eagles are totally invested. There's not a better organization for him to fall to, which is why it made so much sense before that. He tons of hype again, needs to continue to grow and improve there. But there's a couple other guys on the defensive line that were at minicamp, again, just kind of noticing things from clips and pics and everything else there, but that you pointed out, that not the best signs, kind of in jeopardy in terms of them showing up or being at minicamp.
Yeah, it's usually not a great sign to see a player that was already on the Eagles roster that's forced to kind of participate in the Eagles rookie minicamp. And I mean, maybe force is a little bit too mean of a word. Maybe this is them just kind of trying to like better themselves, right? Maybe they're already around the building and say, listen, hey, can I participate? Can I get some extra work in? Which could be the case, right? But I still don't think it's ideal to see a guy like Holland Pierce or your boy Gabe Hall out there, right? Who are an offensive lineman, defensive lineman that people were a little bit hyped about a year or two ago, but now it's going to have to see how their development's gone. It seems like maybe they're competing. The fact that the Eagles brought in Uar Bernard on the defensive line, they signed Joshua Weru, right, as he's an edge, but he could be competing for technically that roster spot, right, given that they brought in some veteran tryouts as well. And then Holland Pierce, they drafted 2 offensive linemen, right? So it might have been like a prove-it chance for him over these 2 days to say, listen, I should still keep this roster spot. Don't necessarily bump me out right now, but could just be them getting in some extra work. But at the same time, not the greatest look for 2 guys that are already considered like end of the roster candidates.
We'll see. Like you said, it's again, short time. They do have OTAs, May 26th, if I'm not mistaken. That'd be the first OTA. So perhaps if, they're able to kind of continue with that as far as other team organized activities. But again, it is the distinction of mostly rookies, some other guys trying to make something happen. So we'll see how that one plays out. Obviously, the first glimpse for all the guys, any sort of football activity is very much appreciated by this point because we're starved for football content, as you can tell us talking about it, or if you've seen anything the past couple days. But we also got to see New Jersey numbers. Now, I don't think that we still know at this current time as far as Jonathan Grenard. So I know some people are waiting on that. It's like, hey, I want to get the jersey. It's perfect. Midnight Grenard is a great nickname. I love that one out there. But we don't know his number as far as I know. However, you've got a great article or piece, depending on when people are watching this. Maybe he's already live, but a lot more analysis on those football numbers. You don't have to go through every one of those, but maybe just a couple of your favorites so far from the jersey numbers we do know.
Yeah, so if anybody that's a fellow jersey number freak like myself, I mean, I put over 1,200 words up there on the PhillySpecialShow.com on the jersey number analysis for the entire rookie class. Which
it's impressive.
A bit much, but it's what I love to talk about, right? So starting with number 9 for Makai Lemon, I mean, I'm just happy to see that because I hate the idea of unofficially retired jersey numbers, right? I think that's nonsense. I think retiring jersey numbers, period, is nonsense. But that's another conversation for another day. Eli Stowers landing number 87. I know some people wanted to see him maybe even wear number 9 that Makai Lemon ended up choosing, but he ended up landing at number 87, which I think is a solid choice for a tight end. You think about Brent Selleck in Philadelphia, but then my eyes go on like Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce, right? Who Travis Kelce didn't play a ton of tight end. He was relatively new to the position also when he came to the NFL and turned himself into a Hall of Fame player, right? So maybe Eli Stowers wears that 87 and has a similar career. That would be great. Moving on to day 3, Cole Wisniewski landing number 21, I think is very fitting as coming off that Sidney Brown award, right? That was like a depth safety with special teams value. I feel like if Wisniewski can kind of offer that same value, I think that would be a great pick and a great turnout for the Eagles. And then the best for last, a guy we already talked about, Uar Bernard, wearing number 93. I mean, you look at the recent history of defensive tackles that have worn that number in Philadelphia. Milton Williams was the last one to wear it. Then Javon Hargrave, Tim Jernigan, like all guys that have like done well for themselves at defensive tackle in Philadelphia, right? I mean, the Hargrave contract, there are some people that weren't too happy with that, but overall he had a good first season in Philadelphia. And overall, as a 7th round pick that's never played in the NFL or basically American football before, landing number 93 as a defensive tackle in Philadelphia is a pretty good haul for him.
Not too bad. Not too bad. And lots of people that are, looking at getting those jerseys. It depends, right? Because this is the game that you play. You can go get the jersey number right now. Some of them are probably going to stick, but every single time we see a couple guys that when they make the cuts, some guys that make the roster, some guys that don't, jersey numbers become available, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, now I got a Quinyon Mitchell jersey number 30. But if you're one of those, you were sold from the very beginning. So, just wear it as a badge of honor. And somebody's like, how'd you get that thing? Well, remember that he actually started out with that number before he went to 27. So we should talk about, even though some people don't want us to, we should briefly mention this here. A.J. Brown had his football camp in Allentown. So he was close-ish, geographically speaking, to Philly. Didn't say a whole lot. You wrote more on this. Again, the PhillySpecialShow.com for people who want to check out in-depth, insightful bits from Anthony DiBona. But the silence is deafening in a way.
Yeah, and people don't like what I had to say about that, it seems like, for the most part. But at the same time, the truth hurts in a way, right? Because people are saying, I've seen a lot of replies to the article saying that, oh, she didn't have to talk at a football camp. But the reason that there were reporters there is because we haven't heard from A.J. Brown since November 12th. That's the last time he spoke to the media. And I know was on the Micah Parsons podcast or whatever that was. He was with Julian Edelman and Gronkowski on their podcast. But that's you can kind of frame how questions are asked then and avoid certain topics. That's all. There's a rundown. Like, there's all different strategies to that. Whereas when you're facing the media, you have to answer the questions that are given to you on the spot, right? So to me, it's just a little bit tough to see him force a guy like Deontae Smith literally the day before A.J. Brown's camp. So he was in the area. He didn't attend Deontae Smith's softball game, which he has attended it once before in the past. So people said that, oh, he didn't attend it every year, but he did attend it before. And given the situation now, Deontae Smith took the podium at his charity softball game with his daughter on his lap, and he was asked questions about A.J. Brown. And to me, as a grown man, I wouldn't want somebody else, especially someone that I considered a close friend, to have to answer for me, right? And we saw Jalen Hurts at the end of the season in the locker room talking about, like, oh, he made like a joking reference, like, oh, why don't you go ask AJ about that? Because he knew damn well that A.J. Brown wasn't in the locker room to answer questions, right? So it's just a tough look. And I know, and I wrote it in the article, I mentioned it. I said this could all just be like kind of like a gag order from the Eagles saying, listen, don't say anything. Jeffrey Lurie spoke to him early in November around that time, and we never heard from him again. So it's probably like, listen, we'll handle this in the offseason. Don't say anything. We won't say anything, and we'll just get you out of here by June 1st, whatever the case might be. So, but to me, it's just like, why not at least just put out like a statement or something, or just address the media, say, listen, I'm not going to answer any questions, but here's what I have to say. I could have handled the situation better, but I'm excited about the future, or something like that, and that's it, right? But to sit there and just let all these other guys like fall on the sword for you, it's kind of whack in my opinion. And I know I'll get like flack for this or whatever, but as a man, like I said, and he's a guy that's talked about mental health, to put this burden on other people while you could just answer for yourself, it's just a tough look, and I don't really respect it, honestly.
Well, and again, like you say, understand you're going to get some comments, agree to disagree in the comment section. And I will also just say this. I mentioned this on the last video that I did, and just to reiterate here, we are of the belief and the mindset that A.J. Brown is not going to be with the Eagles post June 1st, right? There's, whether it's like some people, well, there's a handshake agreement, there's not, whatever the case may be, we are in unison of that going to be the case. If some miraculous thing occurs and A.J. Brown is still here in Philadelphia, I know that some people are already being like, well, I just can't wait to get these apologies. We have no problem saying we were dead wrong and then just completely duped, basically, from what we've seen, heard, gathered, things like this. But as of right now, we never say anything 100% definitively, but like it's 99.9. Like you read the tea leaves, you see what's going on with the team. As you said, kind of laid out the history, track record of what's going on or what's said or been not said from AJ. So it feels like that's where this thing is headed. We will say, though, as far as schedule-wise, again, that's post-June 1st. Before that will be OTAs. So, you'll start kind of, is something going on there? Maybe get some, probably not, but maybe get some sort of a little bit more of a hint May 26th when that one first starts. Curious, I guess, what to look forward to, and maybe even once we get there for OTAs.
Yeah, so I'm just expecting another, as far as when OTAs finally get here, I think it's just going to be like, oh, A.J. Brown's away from the team as they sort through his situation or whatever the stuff they kind of put out there when there was the voluntary workout, right? But before then, we do have the schedule release, the regular season schedule release, which should be around sometime mid-May, I believe. Jimmy Kempski said, I believe it was May 14th last season. He predicted it's going to be like May 13th this year. But either way, in a week or two, we should hopefully be able to look ahead to the schedule, make our way too early win-loss projections, and that's always fun to kind of look back on. But also keep an eye out for any potential free agent signings, right? Like I mentioned, we talked about earlier, these veteran tryouts that were there. Michael Jordan definitely sticks out among them as far as a need, the experience with the coaching staff, that kind of makes sense. And he also, I mentioned Josh Grizzard earlier, but one more thing with Michael Jordan, he was actually in Green Bay on their practice squad for a little bit while Sean Mannion's first season as a head coach, when he was just a generic offensive assistant. So just another little bit more of a connection there. So Michael Jordan would be a player that I would watch for as a veteran signing.
There we go. Keeping an eye on the relationships. And also for the schedule release, because, we do all sorts of crazy giveaways. For this one, drop a like and or comment for a chance for you a Makai Lemon jersey. But when we have the schedule release, I do tickets, possibly. Just saying, just keep an eye out for that. But again, I can only do that because you guys are the best. Make this community the best on YouTube. So appreciate it as always. As I said, make sure to drop a like. Make sure to follow Anthony at DiBona NFL. And we will see you guys. More content to come. Until next time. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Like I should feel like I should go.